Hello everyone, we're live.
Raj, you can start now.
Sure. Hi, good evening, everyone. All those who are on the Zoom call as well as the YouTube channel of Nexus of Good for this webinar on implementation pathway, National Education Policy 2020. Today we'll be focusing on vocational education, career guidance and entrepreneurship. My name is Raj Gilda from Lender Hand, India, and I'll be your host today. This is fifth in the series of six webinar series that we organized. Focused on the implementation for the national education policy. I would like to invite Mr. Anil Swarup, the founder chairman of Nexus of Good, as well as more importantly, former secretary, Ministry of School Education, to give his opening remarks. Mr. Anil Swarup.
A very good afternoon to all of you and welcome to this webinar on vocational education and career guidance. There couldn't have been a better topic than this, because the national education policy, which was announced during the latter part of last year, also focuses a lot on vocational education. And the importance is on account of the fact that earlier vocational education was not treated on par with the science stream or the arts stream or the commerce stream. This actually reflects the importance that the government attaches to vocational education. And of course, finally, you get yourself educated to get a career, and that career guidance becomes very, very important. We have a galaxy of speakers. I think the longest list that we've had since we started having these webinars, and each one of them is a star in himself. I will start with Mr. G.P. Upadhyay. I can call him Upadhyay because that's how I call him, the senior most serving civil servant in this webinar. It's really nice of him to have come here, an extremely, extremely bright officer who's transforming not only education and many other spheres in the state of Sikkim. It's far off from here. We don't notice the wonderful work that is happening there. I had the occasion to visit Sikkim and see firsthand what the wonderful work was happening. I'm also glad to have amidst us Sunita Sanghi, an old colleague. She's not old, but she's an old colleague of mine when we were doing the Rashtriya Swasthya Bima Yojana. What an amazing officer she was. She joined the Planning Commission then and she worked in NEP for a while. Now she's retired, but not tired, certainly, and you will get to know when she speaks today. We have amongst one of the foremost speakers in Santosh Yadav, who's Joint Secretary in the Ministry of Education, School Education. And I'm so glad he's around. He will throw light on what are government intentions and plans for this segment of national education policy, that is vocational education and career guidance. We also have in the first two speakers as Jayant Krishna. He's had a very illustrious career in the private sector. He was also the Chief Executive Officer of NSDC, and now he's with the Joint Indo-British Council. He will be delving upon his experience and probably give suggestions as to how do we move forward. Then we have from JP Morgan, Mr. Manish Chadha, Mekin Maheshwari from Udayam Foundation, Raj Gilda, who's hosting this webinar, is the person who actually gave the name of Nexus of Good. So Nexus of Good owes to him a lot for being what it is today. Then I'm also glad that we have the director Samagra Shiksha from Rajasthan, the state that has done so wonderfully well in school education. I recall a secretary school education when the evaluation was done for various states. Rajasthan was right there at the top, and what a wonderful work they're doing. Then we have Vikas Garad. He's Deputy Director in SCRT Maharashtra, another state that's doing wonderfully well in school education, and I'm so glad he could find time to be here. I must place on record the presence of Suman Sachdeva. She's presently working in UNICEF. I remember when I was School Education Secretary, she started with CARE and then went on to UNICEF. I think I learned personally a lot at the manner in which she took up her assignments and the way she conducted herself. Phenomenal. I'm glad that she's here. Then we have Priya Agarwal from Antrang Foundation. And finally, we have Ayush Bansal, who's actually brain behind a lot of that is happening in Nexus of Good. I'm amazed at the time he's able to devote to Nexus of Good on voluntary basis. So I'm really glad to have all of you here. There are a lot of donors of Nexus of Good, friends of Nexus of Good, and others who have joined us in the webinar. I welcome all of you, and over to you, Raj, to take it forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Swarup. And I must apologize, Mr. Swarup, in the notes which gave to you, we had a typo. It's Manisha Chadha, Miss Manisha Chadha from JP Morgan. So Manisha, our sincere, apologies here. Without, spending more time, can I invite Mr. Santosh Kumar Yadav, Joint Secretary, Ministry of School Education, and and most importantly, in charge of the vocational education, and in the middle of all the things which are going on. We really appreciate your presence here today. And those who are on the Zoom call as well as on YouTube, please type your, questions in the comments box, either in chat, and we'll pick it up during the question answer session. So over to you, Mr. Yadav.
Good morning, sir. I'm Santosh Yadav, Joint Secretary, School Education, and good afternoon, in fact, and to all the August speakers, audience, everybody over here, sir. So I'm given to speak on reimagining vocational education, entrepreneurship, and career guidance in lieu of National Education Policy 2020. So National Education Policy 2020, as you rightly says, pays so much importance to vocational education that is a dedicated full chapter on it, sir. And broadly, I mean, I'll conduct like this. I'll speak something, that I'll show a brief presentation what we plan to do, which I guess everybody is interested in that. So as you know it, that vocational education per se was facing a problem of perception, sir. Perception in the sense ki, sir, generally in the society it is thought of कि अगर कोई perception कोई vocational education कोई बच्चा is somebody is taking part in that, it's that कि बच्चा कोई अच्छा नहीं कर रहा होगा, he must not doing well, that's why he is taken this vocational education. Generally over here also, sir, it had been like this कि vocational education जो 8th के बाद जो drop out होंगे उनके लिए है, या for the it's for higher classes, class 11th and 12th onwards. The perception has been that it's inferior to mainstream education. Mainstream means academic education, sir. And rightly, sir, there has been till now avenues. So somebody was in vocational education, some kid was seriously pursuing it. Avenues for vertical mobility. I mean, there was no clear, well-defined pathways for higher education, entry into higher education. Admission criteria didn't favor him. So why should anybody pursue seriously this vocational education, sir? So, if I mean everybody, I mean the way it is desired, if we enter into vocational education, then there is an infrastructure for that. Where are so many labs? Where there are so many avenues available? Similarly, there is a problem of parity, sir. Parity in the sense Indian standards vis-a-vis standards globally. ILO standards, sir. So, I mean, thinking all these things, I mean, to overcome all these challenges, the policy one by one takes care of everything. The policy, sir, it basically starts with, I mean, you can say the acronym catch them young. If they start in the starting in, I mean, class 6 to 8, at middle stage only, if you are able to create interest in the students about vocational education, maybe he'll have a better choice, better decision making when in higher classes, in class 9, 10, 11, 12, what vocation he should choose. So he'll have a fair idea. Similarly, sir, the policy, I mean, says the interact students with local environment, local craftsmen, local local experts, local avenues available over there, sir. Why? Basically, if somebody, if a kid is in the local carpenter, local craftsman, he involves with them, apart from developing empathy with them, he'll know, I mean, they are the basically one who the practically nut and bolts of economic growth of the country, sir. So, I mean, it's in a way, because we want, apart from this focus, we want to develop him as a good human, sir. So, I mean, you say he'll be sensitized, sir. Similarly, sir, this policy talks about the skill law, creating skill labs and hub and spoke model, which I'll tell you in detail, sir. And policy in a great way talks about, sir, awareness and sensitization programs, sir. I mean, we will be coming up lots of module to, if I can use the word, destigmatize the sector. I mean, creating interest in the sector, keeping, I mean, taking vocational education, I mean, उसके parents को, community को, guardians को फख्र महसूस हो. So we'll, policies tells about this, sir. Similarly, sir, policy talks about then the academic bank of credit. I'll tell you in detail. With this opening, let me start with my presentation. So it'll go like this, over 2020 policy, vocational education key recommendations, implementation plan, and way forward. So it says, sir, by 2025, it has been much discussed. 50% of learners throughout the school education and higher education system will have exposure to vocational education. Exposure, the word used is exposure, sir. The exposure means, his engagement with the community, idea about the vocational education is the exposure means this. By end of the decade, all the schools, all the education institutions will be covered in a phased manner in this vocational education program. So, sir, as I told you, it starts at early stage. Early stage, why? I told you why early stage. Because so that, the kid is more interactive with the community. Then it passes through middle and secondary education, where the actually vocational education will start. Then it will be integrated in higher education. I'll tell you how it will be integrated in higher education. Sir, as you rightly said in the beginning, there is silo between vocational education and mainstream education. So the policy tries to do away with this this particular silos. It tries to mainstream vocational education in academic education. So it says, students will have flexibility in choosing subjects to study, be it with physics, mathematics, vocational education, be it arts with vocational education. So, there will be, he'll have a basket of subjects in which he can choose, and it'll have as much weightage as mainstream education is. It says every child is to learn at least one vocation in schools and exposure to many more. So it talks about creation of skill labs in hubs. The resources are limited. So, sir, as we are saying about school complexes, merging lots of schools in a complex, simply it says about in the particular school complex, the skill labs will be set up so that nearby schools they can take advantage of it. Similarly, we are in touch with Ministry of Skill Development to ab initio to start 500 skill centers in the country so that students can take advantage for this. Similarly, sir, the schools in at senior secondary level, they'll collaborate with nearby ITIs, polytechnic, local business opportunities, industries, hospitals, opportunities available there. Vocational education, similarly, sir, the best thing it says, a body will be created which is called NSIVE, sir, National Committee on Integration Vocational Education, which will have experts from vocational education sector, industries, ministries. So this will handhold. This will develop a framework, also handhold states in doing the skill gap analysis in a particular area and mapping what local opportunities are, so that vocational courses are designed as per local needs also. So it says about 10 days bagless course, a bagless period for class 6 to 8, and just to give hands-on experience to kids to vocational, locally available vocational crafts and other activities going on there. It also says from class 6 to 12, from up to 12th, vocational exposure, similar vocational exposure will be provided to students for the local activities which are going on over there. So the way, it's an example, the way we are planning this to make it more situational based, contextual based, and locational based. The sense, suppose it's example. Suppose you have to make a table. I'll explain like integration of many subjects, like choice of wood, किस रीजन से वुड आ रही है, अगर कॉस्ट ऑफ टेबल मैथमेटिक्स इन्वॉल्व हो जाएगी उसमें, इसकी बैलेंसिंग फिजिक्स इन्वॉल्व हो जाएगा सर उसमें, शेप ऑफ द टेबल ज्योमेट्री इन्वॉल्व हो जाएगी सर, एंड ट्रीटमेंट ऑफ सरफेस पॉलिश एंड एटसेट्रा केमिस्ट्री इन्वॉल्व हो जाएगी इसमें सर. So in a way learning will not be mundane sir, it'll be more interesting. Sir, from 9 to 12, vocational courses will be introduced, and students will have to mix and match. As you told earlier also, there will be no silo. So with academic course, vocational course, and all these activities will be integrated. He'll have a choice. Then in this will be in a way subsequently will be expanded in higher education also. I'll come to that. So the job roles in which the students learns in secondary and senior secondary, they'll speak to job roles, activities which are there in BVoc courses or higher education courses. So there'll be smooth integration. It's not that he's learned something over here and it is not applicable, relevant to when he goes over in higher courses. Similarly, sir, this higher education institutions will be. We are planning that they will start certificate courses, skill-based courses. Even the degree program, 4-year degree programs will also have this vocational courses. The weightage will be given to, whatever students learns in class 9 to 12, level 3, level 4, there will be certain weightage given to it, and that weight will be added to his academic bank of credit, which will be subsequently we can use anytime. So it talks about Lok Vidya. जो traditional knowledge, traditional skill which has been honed in the area since ages, that will be integrated in vocational education courses. Sir, right now around 5% of the all the students go through this vocational education courses. So if you are the good countries, developed countries, they are in the range of 80%. So if you are, through school education system only, we cannot reach that level in a decade. So we are in a big way involving national NIUS, SIUS, designing and developing this open distance learning courses, so that these certificate courses they can learn from it, and practical courses, and then they are available for the market situations. So we are also taking care of in education part, so that children with special needs, marginalized sections of society, they are not left behind. Technologically, with tool-based, with course-wise, syllabus-wise, we are taking a due care of that. So here comes, this again, how about for such a gigantic program, training, how will get the trainers, how will get the resources, sir? So right now, sir, NCT, National Council of Teacher Education, is being tasked for it to first we'll come up with a national curricular framework, which by the end of year it will come up, which is being designed by NCRT. On the basis of this state will we are in close interaction, almost on fortnightly basis. We are engaging the states, because we and the states are working in tandem to make this program successful. So based on this national curriculum framework, state will design develop their curriculum framework, and The courses designed by this NCT, this training program will be offered, pre-service training, short-term training. We are coming up with, our main institute, Bhopal, is day and night they are developing these, developing these courses, and soon we'll be in a position. Soon means it'll take not less than 5-6 months to come up with piloting of these courses. Similarly, we'll be using, sir, policy says that, and we are of the view, and we are trying to engage the local experts, experts who are trained, who are locally available there, so that they can train our teachers over there. They can train our BRCs, TIDES, CRCs. I mean, so that whole ecosystem is developed from top to bottom. Sir, I mean, right now I've been telling about local skills and all that. It doesn't mean that we are not thinking about 21st century skills. We try to strike a good balance between 21st century skills and local skills. So a way forward, sir, inclusion of vocational from class 6 to 12 in NCF, which I said by the end of this calendar year, we hope that we'll get it from NCERT. I mean, it will be finalized. Then massive awareness. I mean, as you told you that told in the beginning, that massive awareness program to bring attitudinal change and popularize these vocational courses. We are coming up with short-term videos and region-specific, course-specific, region-specific videos, so that, I mean, people can be, and community can be, guardians can be sensitized. Sir, similarly, skill-based tests for class 8 and class 10 are being, I mean, they have been developed, I'm telling you, and we are piloting with some states. And career counseling and guidance children in class 9th and 12th. So this way, this we are right now we are working on. I mean, I just now I don't have the role, but we are a team of ours is on job for this, and very soon we'll come out with a roadmap. This we know that this is very important. So this I told you, sir, states will prepare their framework based on national curriculum framework, and they can adopt or adapt it. And school-wise roadmap, we have told the states in our interaction that a school-wide roadmap for exposure students to at class 6 to 8 stage, they should prepare. So that's it from my side, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Yadav. You finished just in time, very much right, what Nexus of Good has always believed in the functionality. So thank you so much for that. And if you can stay back, once Mr. Krishna finishes, we'll have a question answer session as well. Okay. Now, can I introduce Mr. Jayant Krishna, the Group CEO, UK India Business Council, and the former CEO and CEO of NSTC. Once again, if you have any questions, please enter in your Zoom chat box or on your YouTube comment section as well. Mr. Krishna, please.
Thank you, Raj. Am I audible very clearly?
Yes, you are.
All right. Thank you. I think it was a wonderful presentation by Mr. Yadav. Let me try to add something to it, or maybe try to give a slightly different flavor to it. This entire story of India reaping a rich demographic dividend and all, to my mind, it would remain a pipe dream if the vocationalization of education, what the new education policy talks about, if we don't do it in letter and spirit, and we do it with all the seriousness, otherwise, we as a country, we today rank as the 5th highest GDP ranking country in the world. But at the same time, we all also know that, I'm not an economist, but broadly divide that number with the population of the country. And you find the per capita income, ranking of India is as low as 142. on Human Development Index, which is largely to do with education, skills, healthcare, infrastructure, quality of life indicators, there our rank is, actually we have slipped by 2 ranks. It used to be 129th in 2020. It slipped to 131, so I think it is statistics is something, what you project can give you a very, very different set of this thing. So this is one prime reason to my mind is that, what Mr. Yadav also mentioned, that, people attach stigma. I mean, the society at large, including the schools, including the education system, it looks down upon skills. That it is if somebody is going for skill development, that must be a child must be a lesser mortal, or the youth must be a lesser mortal. So I think this has to go. And one contrasting figure, which is nothing new. I mean, I've been using last, almost a decade, where bulk of my time I spent on skill development. And the data has not changed. We as a country, we still, just about 3 to 4% of our overall youth who, of the entire labor force, if you look at, only 3 to 4% had been formally skilled. Now compare this data with that of China, where 50% of the workforce is formally skilled in skill institutes and things like that. South Korea, the figure is 96%. Japan, the figure is 98%. Germany, the figure is 70%. So where are we? And all these efforts which have happened in last 1 decade, all it improved was that the figure which used to be around 4% is perhaps, we don't even know. The data available in the country is so poor. Today, just about close to 5% of our skills of our workforce perhaps has undergone any formal skilling. So there is a long way to go. And to my mind, new education policy by asking us to mainstream, the vocational subjects, and by the year 2025, 50% of all students would opt for at least one vocational subject, and not as a separate stream, but like in the basket of subjects available, and one of them would be skills. And they're talking about all 100% of students to be covered this way by the year 2030. To my mind, some very practical steps which are required there is that we have to introduce a wide range of skill subjects, job roles which are compliant with the National Skills Qualification Framework. That's important because somewhere you have to bring sanity into what happens in the skill space. It can't be a free for all. It has to have some standardization. And there is a National Skills Qualification Framework we need to align. From class 9 to 12, the most logical levels would be level 3, level 1 to 4. Of the 10 level NSQF, although there is no hard and fast rule, you could have a couple of levels higher also you can aspire for class 12, and this has to span, in service sector, manufacturing sector, agriculture sector, and so on and so forth. So it's very important that every school where you roll out this has to have a choice of at least 4 vocational subjects, which should be based not at the whims and fancies, not at the what government believes, but very clearly aligned with what the skill gaps are in that sector. So that's very, very important in that district, in and around that district, what the skill gaps are. Based on that, these choice of 4 subjects has to be there for that geography. Labs, the NEP talks about, but it's very, very important to set up those labs. And rather than reinventing the wheel, we have sector skill councils which have done, I would not say an outstanding, but a reasonable job of identifying, lab requirements for different job roles. Because lab requirements changes, even if it's a carpenter grade A to carpenter grade B. The job requirements, the lab requirements are different. So I think, we should just embrace it shamelessly, because we as a country, we don't have the freedom to wait endlessly through a prism of timelessness that, another committee will be set up, another body will come up and they will do it. So something has already happened. It may not be perfect, but it's good enough. So embrace. Hello.
If you're not speaking, can you mute, please? Mohan?
There's a lot of hissing sound coming from somewhere. Yeah, it's gone. Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you, Jen.
You can hear me?
Yes, yes, yeah.
All right. So I think those labs are very important. We'll need at least 4 vocational teachers in every school which is running this program, and 1 teacher for employability skills. See, so many reports. I mean, a few years back in the erstwhile Planning Commission, I had the opportunity to be a co-convener of one of the task forces which was set up to look at employability issues. And to our utter surprise, we found that, barely 10% of our, I'm not talking about secondary level, but 10% of our overall graduates that we produce were employable. And if you look at the creamy layer of our doctors, engineers, MBAs, architects, they're just about 24% of them were employable. So it's a huge drain on national resources. Time and again, we have seen the ACER report has talked about, the inadequacy, the gaps, gross gaps in our learning attainments at different levels. Where a class 8 student may not be able to read the vernacular textbook of class 3 and a whole lot of gaps. So the biggest challenge for this sector would be that, how do you compensate for the gaps that the students has come graduate? Suppose a person has done class 10 and the actual learning attainments are much poorer than that. So do you address those gaps, or do you only address to the delta that has to be imparted in terms of that job role theory as well as largely hands-on experience in the lab? So I think that employability skills broadly, it's beyond soft skills, not just soft skills. That's very, very important to go through. See, a lot of time in government planning, what happens in these labs when you set up, while capital somehow is provided for setting up the lab, but there's inadequate, resources available for raw materials and consumables. Because skill development labs largely would be material consumption intensive. So I think consumables have to be planned very, very clearly. You talked about 21st century skills. That's a higher order thing. The basic employability skills are not in place, and therefore somewhere we have to merge and look at and do it. If you mainstream, if you don't have don't create a separate stream. If you mainstream, then to large extent this stigma would go. I fortunately went to a school where there used to be a hobby period for 1 hour. The normal teaching classes used to be for 45 minutes each subject, but the hobby period used to be for 1 hour. And for a few years in that school, I found that I could do a bit of a carpentry, I could do a bit of a gardening, I could do a bit of a dramatics, because each student was allowed to have 3 for 6 days a week, 2 days each. So 2 hours per week we used to study those. We used to call them hobbies, but those are all skills. And I'm so happy I went through that rigor. But unfortunately, that school itself has disbanded that scheme altogether. Which it had embraced, almost 5 decades or 6 decades ago, as soon as it was set. So I think these things are very, very important. One thing which is very, very, no matter what labs you set up, what instructors you bring, what kind of vocational subjects you teach, but it's very important that people are allowed to soil their hands, and there is no better. You can't have apprenticeship because of a lot of constraint, but at least 2 months of internship is very, very important. It should be made compulsory in schools once during class 11 or 12. It could be during the summer vacations or winter vacations, wherever those are applicable. And this could be in the industry, it could be in the social enterprise, it could be at a non-profit NGO, wherever, we have to create at every school industry interface cell or in a cluster of schools. That's very, very important, who would do the tie-up for factory visits of students, for guest lectures, for internship, and perhaps for some of them who want to go for apprenticeship, that as well, and job placement, because after 12, some of them, if not all, may like to go for a job. There's a very huge interface which is required with CSIR labs in the region, with the Atal Innovation Mission, with the KYPYs, various science and technology labs, Vocational universities have come up in the country, still not in a too big a way, but there are most big states have that. Of course, engineering colleges, ITI. So those interfaces have to be developed very clearly. You know, in UP, which is my home state, I got involved with the steering committee for the NEP rollout, and I found, you know, almost 95% of the state outlay for education and higher at the secondary level goes for salaries. You know, if that doesn't change, unless we have adequate funding available for that, you know, then new education policy would remain a paper dream. That's my impression. It's very important. We must provide apprenticeship pathways to students post class 12 in conjunction with the Skill India mission. These are very, and many states you know, have a very absolutely dysfunctional state level existing vocational, you know, in UP it has. The only state where I've heard where it works with some degree of success is Maharashtra. Otherwise, most states have a completely dysfunctional vocational streams already happening, you know. So one has to go deeper that why did that program fail almost completely in the country, and draw some lessons, either restructure it or completely close down, whatever be the case, you know. When I said apprenticeship, you know, it is, let us have some more data. You know, I mean, we all talk about German vocational skills being best in the world, and we talk about the, you know, the special privilege that the German craftspeople, the German skills industry brings based on their dual system. So let's look at what kind of apprenticeship in our scheme in our country has been a complete failure. You know, we just have about 3 lakh apprentices at any given point of time. If you compare this with Germany, they have 3 million apprentices, 30 lakh apprentices. If you look at Japan, they have 10 million, which means 1 crore apprentices. If you look at China, they have 20 million apprentices, and so I think we have to, you know, unless you allow the students to soil their hands the hard way, there is no other way people are going to learn, and therefore, and while the boundary for this session is largely school education, you know, from class 11 till 12. But I fundamentally believe that apprenticeship has to become an integral part and a compulsory part of all undergrad courses also, you know. I mean, and that has to be for a minimum of 6 months. So basically, it can't be done during summer vacations. It has to have, you know, call them degree apprenticeship or whatever name you want to give it. But it has to 6 months break has to be given, proper break has to be given for apprenticeship at the degree level, you know, because unless people soil their hands and learn the hard way, you know, school, colleges, teaching, labs, skills can take you this far and not beyond. That's very, very clear, you know. So, Raj, I don't know how much time I have.
Mr. Krishna, I would love to hear more. If you can wrap up in 1 minute, and we'll have more covered during the question answer session. Right?
Sure. So I think this is one fine idea whose time has come, and unless we look at, I mean, my only quarrel with the national education policy is that it talks about this level. And the country is not at this level, country is at this level, you know. If this is the minimum acceptable level, the country's average is several notches below that, you know. So how do you that quantum leap that new education policy talks about, not only in the skills space, but all across, you know, unless you bring the current level to the level of, if not IITs and IIMs, then at least to the levels of you know, NITs, you know, and those kind of institutions, the current education system in the country, you know, it'll be a miserable failure. So I think we have to do some serious soul searching, and that where we stand today vis-a-vis where we dream and aspire to go under the new education policy, and how do we, you know, pull up our socks so that, you know, the current setup that we have in education system, it comes to a bare minimum acceptable level, you know, before we can take that quantum leap that the new education policy promises, because this is something, as I said, that whose time has come, and India must embrace it with all the seriousness. It should become perhaps the biggest priority in the country today has to be the new education policy rollout. I hope and pray that it deserves that kind of attention in the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Krishna. And on those words, I'd like to get 2-3 questions in. The first question would like to get to is that what are the Ishita Jain is asking, what are the provisions to take these inclusions into education policy to remote and rural areas? So how do we make sure that it doesn't remain only the ambit of urban areas? How are we going to take it to remote and rural areas?
So may I respond?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Basically, as the question is being asked, also as was said by Jayant Krishna sir also, we have a flagship scheme called Samagra Shiksha. Samagra Shiksha reaches throughout length and breadth of country, be it remote area, be it unexcited affected area, be it cities, everywhere. So the Samagra Shiksha scheme reaches. In fact, it's basically for government and government-aided schools, but it throws a light on everything over there in a particular area. So with this flagship scheme, we are reaching, be it remotest area, with any area. So that's not the challenge. Challenge is resources. So because as Krishna Saab said, we are at particular level and we have to reach much higher level. So we are what we are doing, we are converging resources available from every sources. Like the Finance Commission devolution of resources give good amount of money to states, and there is a sector called education, and it goes to Panchayati Raj. So we are apart from the budget which the ministry has, the extra budget we are getting, we are trying to get for NEP. We are in touch with them. We are dovetailing their resources for our purposes, so that kitty become bigs. And similarly, rightly said, and we have told the states to identify skill gaps and what are the local opportunities available over there. They are in a big way. They are those students, they have to get they have to serve the local needs. The industry has to feed the industry needs them. They also need the job. Though in a concerted effort, we are onto that. Third, it was rightly said. How about this learning levels of the students? So we are launching foundation literacy. That's the topmost priority for us. So we by 2025, we have defined learning outcomes. So we are moving towards, we are gearing up. So by 2025, the students, in elementary stage, they'll read with comprehension. They will have say computational abilities up to the standards. Similarly, for higher classes also we are moving. So definitely there is a challenge. There is a challenge that the class 5th student cannot read properly. Do maths of class 2 and 3. We know that, but then we are now shifting our focus. We are reorienting also ourselves to these standards. So rest assured, this will be taken care of. The other question being asked about is how about the career progressions of these vocational education teacher and training? It's a very good question. Definitely we'll give a serious thought to it. We'll definitely on this. And will the private sector be allowed to set up centers of excellence? Definitely. Undoubtedly we are. Undoubtedly, number one. And other thing is, what we will encourage, if anybody does some innovative work in vocational education field, we'll support that and we'll request them to share their experiences to everybody, so that we don't have to innovate wheels. So every effort in the country will be converged, as you said, from reaching for 5% to up to more than 60%. That's how.
Mr. Yadav, I'll jump to a question from the YouTube which we have from Parul Agarwal. What will be the scope for internship during the vocational education at school?
Yeah. So right now, what we have thought, as Jayant Krishna sir also said it, up to students of class 11th and 12th, during holiday period will definitely will definitely do internship. They'll soil their hands with their local entrepreneurs and local avenues available with them. Students from class 6 to 8, I mean, this will start from 6 to, from middle class only, but definitely will focus much more over there in higher classes. They during holiday period, during other period, they get opportunities for this. And what other thing, Raj, what else you said?
I think the next thing is about application of technology. Now that if you're scaling, how are you envisaging EdTech policy to be, supporting the NEP, National Education Policy, going forward?
So as I told you in my slide only, because if I am here, I have to reach here. It has to be through technology only. It has to be through tools only. So in a big way, ministry is thinking to convert all the effort, be this knowledge available with the private players. Be it, something has been done in the states. Some best practices which we are available to us. Something which is being done, we'll keep our eyes open. We'll keep sharing, and we'll promote in a big way.
Just to add here, we have almost 200,000 panchayats in the country where you have today thick tube pipes, the rural broadband availability, which can be leveraged big time, from a central streaming of these courses, and for mass replication in the rural schools. Otherwise we'll keep on hoping that in every school, in every village, in every district, we will have the right kind of teachers, we'll have the right kind of delivery, we'll have the right kind of models available, and it may not happen. So, do it once and replicate and roll out on a mass scale, that will, bring lots of changes. We have to embrace technology shamelessly. Unless we'll do that, we will remain where we are.
I'm Sunita Sanghi, Dr. Raj, can I just come in on this issue of involving the panchayats? I think from the Ministry of Skill Development side, we are already now partnering with the Ministry of Panchayati Raj, wherein we are going to use panchayat as our launch pad to ensure that most of the skilling programs that are there in this space, the information is made available to both at the school level as also at the general public level about the various programs that are being run. And we are also making an effort through our ITI ecosystem and also through our Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Kendras to onboard a large number of schools also on the platform for making available the right kind of skill education to the students, even at a village and a block and a panchayat level. That's what the Ministry of Skill Development is doing it right now.
But suggestion very well taken about, you're right, a lot, very near, and all the government plans to reach to broadband in all the panchayats. So it's definitely we'll deliberate upon it to why not to live stream these these courses from for the benefit of everybody in the villages.
Yes.
Just wanted to add, the Ministry of Human Resources, like the Education Ministry now and Skill Development Ministry, they have to work very closely now. If any of these has to see the light of the day, that relationship or the rapport has to be far better than what historically has been the case. If this to be rolled out effectively.
Yeah, and Mr. Krishna, that's the reason we wanted Mrs. Sunita Sanghi to be here, as well.
Absolutely.
And, your suggestion is getting implemented, and it's a good beginning, right? We have many more questions. Yeah,
I'm so happy to see Sunita ji in the program. Yeah.
Hi, Jen. Yeah.
Hi.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Yeah. Same here.
So we have many more questions, but unfortunately, we have run out of time. So thank you, Mr. Krishna, and thank you, Mr. Yadav, for your time today. And I hope you can stay back for the rest of the program. And for the questions which you are not able to answer because of the paucity of time, we promise you that we'll get back to you in the written form. We'll get to those to the panel members and get the answers to you. Thank you so much. Okay. Now I think the time for the next part of the program, which is the state practices, and specifically we are going to have a panel on vocational education and entrepreneurship. and talking about the practices in the states of Sikkim and Delhi. So may I invite our moderator for this panel, Ms. Manisha Chadha from JP Morgan Chase. She is the head of CSR for philanthropic CSR and philanthropic initiatives for JP Morgan India. And we are very happy we wanted to have a perspective from a funder point of view. At the end of the day, you need money to do this. So very happy that she is able to join today. And Ms. Chadha, I hand over the proceedings to you now. Thank you.
Thanks, Raj. And Raj, welcome to the panel now. So switch hats. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We heard very exciting context setting from Mr. Sinha, from Mr. Yadav, and so many of the things that they spoke about have been running through all our minds regarding national education policy and how to embed vocational education or how to execute it on the ground. We're running a little late, so without further ado, I'll go straight into the panel by introducing the four eminent panelists that we have with us today. The first person who I'd like to introduce is Mr. Upadhyay. Mr. Upadhyay is an IS officer and the additional chief secretary with the Department of HRD in the government of Sikkim. He's done some very innovative work in Sikkim, which we hope to hear from him today. Our second panelist is Ms. Sunita Sanghi. Sunita just spoke before, and Raj introduced and mentioned to all of us that she's worked across a number of ministries. So to Jayant's point that the ministries need to work more closely with each other, that's going to be very interesting experience to hear from her how that can happen. Third person on the panel is Mikin Maheshwari. Mikin is the founder of Udhyam Learning Foundation, and I have the privilege of calling him a friend as well. Udhyam, again, doing a lot of work in different things, but entrepreneurship is one of the things that they have introduced as part of the school curriculum in Delhi. So welcome, Mikin. We look forward to hearing more from you. And our last panelist, but not the least, in fact, probably the most important person for today's session is Raj Gilda. Raj, I don't know if I need to introduce you. You seem to be known by everyone, but just for the benefit of those who don't, Raj is the co-founder of an organization called Lend a Hand India. Another person I am very proud to call a friend. And Lend a Hand India has done some excellent work in introducing multi-skilling in schools, as well as what Raj's now working on is introducing internships in schools. Also something that was spoken about by our opening speakers. So thank you everyone for joining and welcome to this session. Just as housekeeping, may I request everyone who is not speaking to please keep their mics on mute so that we have an undisturbed session. Questions will be later on through the chat. Great, so let's get started. Mr. Upadhyay, could I go with you first and ask you about Sikkim? You've done some really interesting work in Sikkim, and you know what I found very exciting is that you've introduced organic farming in schools. So can you tell us more about the experience and how you see with the new national education policy, all that experience can actually be translated on the ground and other states can learn from you? Mr. Upadhyay?
I think you're on mute.
Yeah. Good evening, everybody. Very happy to be here. And I also saw Anil Sarup, sir. I think he's also here. He's in this program.
Yes, I'm here.
Sir.
I'm here.
So basically, you know, sir, some wonderful writings you have been doing. Congratulations and keep it up, sir. So, you know, I will be very brief. Vocational education has been seen as something which is meant only for people who can't study and all that, and they must do a job after class 8 or 10. I think this is something a very wrong notion. We must think about vocational education as something which has to be done by everybody. To become a better student, also you need to learn through doing something through hands. I mean, organic farming, Sikkim became organic state of India, first organic state of India. And we thought that, you know, immediately after that, we thought that when everybody talks about Sikkim and organic farming, why not we introduced organic farming in schools, because the children and all, they did not know about organic farming, what organic farming means, and why there is so much of halla gulla about organic farming. इसमें ऐसा क्या है कि इतना हंगामा हो रहा है, प्रधानमंत्री आ रहे हैं, सब लोग आ रहे हैं. So we introduced it, and it was basically a non-credit course. Tremendous response from children. They were so happy to know about organic things, what is organic farming meaning, how the land becomes organic, how it is maintained as organic, and the organic vegetables and other produce, how they are, how they command so much of prices in the market, and how it can be a very respectable, good profession, vocation in the future. So we partnered with the NCRT, and the textbook also was launched. And again, our SCRT is involved with PSSCIV in designing other things. So it has been a phenomenal success. All our secondary, senior secondary schools have this. And I must thank Government of India, Samagra Shiksha, SSA, and then Samagra Shiksha. They have supported us in this very, very ably. And that has been a very good thing. And of course, when Anil Swarup sir was Secretary School Education, we started partnering with NGOs, and that's how I came to know Raj. And he mentioned about in Guwahati about multi-skilling, and I jumped at it. I said, what a course it is. Because I remember when I went for my IIT, first year we did workshop engineering, and I was so happy to cast something on the first day. I was feeling so empowered कि मैंने अपने हाथ से ये फाउंड्री का काम किया है. तो मुझे ये था अंदर से कि ये चीज आपको अंदर से कॉन्फिडेंस देती है, आपको अंदर से एक क्लासरूम का जो सेटअप है जो थोड़ा बोरिंग सा होता है, एंड लिटिल बिट ऑफ टैक्सिंग ऑन यू कम आउट ऑफ इट, एंड यू गेट rejuvenated by doing this. You develop a sense of pride. And I told my children that vocational education is meant for brighter children, not for those who are poor. Because you see, when I was interviewed for the IAS, they asked, you are an engineer, don't you think that your entire education is going to be waste? Because so much of money has been invested in your education by government in IITs, and you are now coming to civil service. I said, what kind of question is this? It is going to be extremely useful. I mean, whatever I have learned is going to be so useful to me as a civil servant. Why do you think the other way? Think the way I think. I have to execute projects. I have to get things constructed on the ground. I have to look after everything as a collector. So my perspective is very different. So I would say that this the states, the NEP talks about it, but the states must look for opportunities which are available in their local states, which are comparative advantage or whatever we call it in trade terms, and go for such things, introducing such things in the schools. And I can tell you, the children are going to jump at it, because they really enjoy doing things by hands. I'll stop at this.
Thank you so much, Mr. Upadhyay. I want to pick up from where you've left off of doing this excellent work in a state. And when we look at the national education policy, we're talking about rollout across the country. And I'd like to request Sunita to talk about this. Given you worked now at the Ministry of Skill Development and Education, you worked in the Ministry of Education prior to that with NEP Aayog. That's a pretty vast footprint within the government system. So how do you think that, collaborations, or what kind of collaborations are needed to take initiatives such as the one we have in Sikkim across the country to all the states?
Thank you, Manisha ji, and a very good evening to everyone. My special thanks to Anil Swarup sir also, because I worked with him while he was in the Ministry of Labor and Employment. Very good evening, Swarup sir. Now let me just come back to a question. I think Jayant has also made a reference, and Mr. Santosh had also made a reference about this. Before we talk about actually the kind of collaboration that one can have between the Ministry of Skill Development or Ministry of Education to actually improve the footprint of the vocational education across, I think we need to understand as to why the vocational education has not taken off when it comes to the formal education ecosystem. Now, if you look at prior to new education policy, I think the Kothari Commission in 1986 did broach out the subject of bringing about the vocational education in the formal education ecosystem. And we did introduce a vocationalization of school education, but the scheme never took off. Perhaps I think the reasons being, one being that there is a social stigma that is attached with the very word of our vocational education, and people think that those people who are actually not doing very well in the formal education are the ones who actually end up picking up the vocational education. The second important, I think, the drawback of the introduction of a vocational education, the ecosystem, has been that we never had a very robust curriculum, course content. Also, when we were talking about the vocational education, it was only taken as one of the subjects without actually focusing on that when we talk about vocational education, it is more to do with the practical skilling, practical learning that one can have actually doing by hand something. The third important lacuna has been that we never had very good quality trainers, teachers, and the kind of labs and the kind of system that were existing in schools were not supporting the kind of vocational education that we were looking at. Having said that, if you look at the new education policy 2020, I think this particular policy is now looking at revamping the vocational education and mainstreaming the vocational education completely and starting right from class 6 as an experiential learning, so that a student who is in class 6 gets exposed to an alternative if he thinks of dropping out of the ecosystem. So a student, when he starts visiting either the shop floor of an industry or maybe the ITI, the training institutions, he or she will get to understand that if he or she is not doing well into the formal education system, there is an alternative where he or she can go. So at a policy level, now I feel when you talk about the collaboration between the Ministry of Education and Ministry of Skill Development, Ministry of Education is a vintage ministry, Ministry of Skill Development is a very, very new ministry. But then I think in over a period of last 5 years, Ministry of Skill Development has put in place quite a good system, which will definitely ensure, and which is ensuring also, that we are able to create an aspiration for the skill development and also for the vocational education in the ecosystem. When I talk about that, it is trying to create an aspiration for the vocational education. For example, we have introduced what we call a system of giving degrees in the ITI ecosystem. So when a student actually goes to an ITI and get a degree and there's a convocation, that raises the bar about the vocational education in the mind of the people. Because look, the people who are going for the vocational educations are those who are otherwise also regarded into the formal education system. So one important area where the two ministries can collaborate is that we have to clearly do away with the artificial distinction between the education and the skill development. It has to be reduced so that we are able to create an overall goal of a human capital development. Now, these ministries, they tend to with all respect to Swaroop sir also, ministries are tending to protect their turfs, and thus any meaningful collaboration really becomes very, very challenging. If I give you this particular an example here, like we are wanting to set up a skill universities, but there is no consensus between the two administrative ministries on the jurisdiction to govern such institutions. Now, second important thing, is that we need to create a credible credit framework, which will essentially ensure that anybody who is coming out of the skill ecosystem, when I say skill ecosystem, many students who are dropping out of the formal education after class 5 or class 8, they actually land up in the ecosystem of the Ministry of Skill Development. They do small courses, and then they do not know that after that course, if they want to join the formal ecosystem, whether they can join the formal ecosystem of the education or not. So what we can do is, what Ministry of Skill Development is also working on, we are developing a credit framework. In that credit framework, what we are doing is we are trying to link and assign and apportion certain credit to those who are doing short-term training programs or a long-term training program, and then map it with the appropriate education level. By that, I mean, suppose if somebody has dropped out of class after class 5, he does, let's say, 3 months, couple of courses, and then he wants to join class 6. We are trying to now work with the Ministry of Education and see if a person has to join class 6, if he has done these 3 courses, how do I map and how do I apportion the credit that he or she is able to earn certain credit. And if he or she does some bridge courses with the help of the National Open School, will he be or she be entitled to join the formal ecosystem or not? So we are already developing the credit framework. Now, Ministry of Education had developed the Someway credit framework. So we are trying to custom that. That was for the higher education ecosystem, but we are trying to now customize that for the ecosystem of the school education as well. So once we have this credit framework, I have a personal feeling, and we are also thinking in the ministry, that once we have this credit framework in place, anybody who drops out of the ecosystem, if he is in the skill ministry's ecosystem, he does some courses, he gets some credit, and by doing a bridge course, he attained that level that he can enter easily the formal education ecosystem, not only at a higher education level, but also at a school education level. In fact, we had collaborated with the NOIS, and we had mapped certain courses of the ITI ecosystem, which is a long-term training ecosystem. And we realized that people are willing to do the formal, they are very much interested that after completing the ITI, get certain credit, do the bridge course of NOIS, and then join class 11, 12, wherever they are fitting into in terms of the credit. So if we are able to put in place a credible credit framework and we are able to operationalize, I think this will facilitate a clear mobility of a candidate who is pursuing a vocational education to move into the formal education ecosystem. Or if somebody is doing a formal education system, wants to move to the long-term trainee of a vocational education system, can easily move into the this vocational education ecosystem also. That is why we are also collaborating with the Ministry of Education in terms of the National Apprenticeship Program as well. Now, from our ministry, we have already indicated to the Ministry of Education that in the higher education ecosystem, people who are pursuing the undergrad courses, if they are wanting to do a small short-term training programs, our ecosystem, sector skill councils, our training partners, or the Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Kendras are willing to collaborate with the higher educational institutions to undertake these short-term training programs. Another important thing wherein we are, because since the new education policy is talking about experiential learning, so what we have offered to the Ministry of Education also is that since we have Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Kendras in almost all the districts of the country, and we have close to about 15,000 ITIs in the country, government and as also the private sector and ITIs. So we have developed what we call a hub and spoke model. The idea behind the hub and spoke model is that our ITIs will act as a hub, and the schools around the ITIs will be the spoke. So each school is opening up and starting their own lab, which is a capital intensive project as well, since our ITIs already have the labs. So these ITIs will work as a hub. So the nearby schools will have an access to the ITI ecosystem for experiential learning, as also from class 9 onward for actual practical training also. So our model will work in a fashion that the teachers from the ITI ecosystem or from the Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Kendras will visit these schools for theory classes, and for the practical, the students of the nearby schools can visit these centers for the practical training. So that is one way through which we are trying to collaborate with the Ministry of Education. Another important thing that we are trying to do is by improving the employability of the graduates, wherein our new apprenticeship embedded degree programs have been initiated by the Ministry of Education. In fact, this was the initiative that the Ministry of Skill Development had taken in 2018, wherein we had indicated to Ministry of Education that we would like to initiate this, and we did start it in many colleges. Couple of courses in 3 sectors. One was the logistics sector through our logistics sector skill council, also in the retail and the beauty and wellness, so that the students who are wanting to do the apprenticeship can do the apprenticeship while they are pursuing their regular courses. Similarly, I think like the administrative ministries, the regulators, whether it is UGC, AICT, they also have to work for a common purpose, and they have to develop a dynamic frameworks for academic equivalence, credit transfers, and better on-ground coordination. besides this, I think if we can have a greater alignment in education and VET funding, by that I mean that today we are just spending 3% of the total education budget on the vocational education training. And if we really want the vision that has been set forth in the new education policy to be realized, I think we need to enhance this particular provision multiple times. And there is requirement to increase it at least to 10%. The vocational education budget needs to go at least go up to a 10% if you really want world-class vocational education and training as far as the school level is concerned. Because it is very, very important that at a school level, we are able to do a proper type of a counseling. And for that, Ministry of Skill Development has developed a career counseling and career guidance framework. We are already in conversation with the Ministry of Education. In fact, Ministry of Education was part and parcel of the committee that was working on the career counseling, career guidance. Because if we have to realize the vision of new education policy, unless and until we have a robust career counseling, career guidance, I don't think we will be able to realize the vision. Even if the Ministry of Skill Development or Education have to work, whether in the area of enhancing the budget or in the area of aligning the qualifications, or in the area of providing the training to the trainers, who are going to provide the skill training in the school education ecosystem, we definitely need to have more funds and more partnership between the two ministries. Thank you.
Thank you, Sunita. A lot of really interesting ideas as to how resources can be shared and more optimally used, as well as how budgets can be leveraged to the fullest extent. I want to, before we go on to our friends from the civil society, just once again call out, if you have any questions, we're seeing a number of them coming in. Please put them on the chat or in the YouTube comments. Okay, back to our panelists. Mikin, you've done a lot of work in entrepreneurship as part of the school curriculum in Delhi. And we've been hearing a lot about skilling from a wage employment perspective. What's been your experience of doing entrepreneurship? Do you see similar stigmas that have been talked about? And how do you think NEP can sort of be leveraged to amplify that with the work that you've been doing?
Thank you, Manisha. Thank you, everyone. First, maybe just a little bit of context on what we've done working closely with the Delhi government and a bunch of others. Is to have helped build a course called the Entrepreneurship Mindset Curriculum. It's not an incubator. It's a curriculum that's focused on building entrepreneurial skills and mindsets in grades 9 to 12. So it's a 4-year program, first period every day. So I feel like one of the largest wins for this program is the time allocation, because our kids are super busy. The time that is allocated to this program every day, I feel is a large win for this program. The parts about this focusing on both skills and mindsets, like very early when I got into the education sector, I heard about, from pedagogues, I heard about learning being about knowledge, skills, and mindsets. But very rarely did I see mindsets being in focus in our education. And through this program, what we've tried to do is to try and take mindsets of independence, mindsets of grit, mindsets of self-belief and self-awareness to become the front of what or how learning happens. It's a no textbook, no exam curriculum, 80% experiential, 20% inspirational. So 20% are real life entrepreneurial people stories. So it starts with Mr. Verghese Kurian's story, who was a government servant, who ended up creating Amul. So very entrepreneurial government servant, but a government servant. So it's got these combinations, plus it's been able to create a bunch of innovative themes. I'll quickly jump to what my learnings have been from there. I think the core idea of doing, being a way of learning, and that starting to get respected significantly more in our society and culture, I feel comes very naturally to young people. It is it is the labels that are possibly associated or attached. So just like Mr. Upadhyaya was talking about, that as in the first time you do something with your hands, you feel confidence, you feel joy. And I feel by disallowing kids to do that, we are probably keeping them away from both that confidence and joy. So enabling ways in which young people could get to do a lot more versus just knowing. And I think this balance between knowing and doing is far out onto just knowing. And so I think that shift through an experiential curriculum, we were able to experience significantly. So we saw fairly large degree of participation. Like 86% kids said that they wanted this curriculum every day, even though there were people in parts of the administration who were questioning that, like SUPW, why can't this be one period a week? Why does this have to be every day? And I feel it is about committing bandwidth and time to important subjects like doing, important subjects like problem solving and grit and independence, that we can hope to alter the trajectories that we are looking at. I do want to bring us back to the India context, that we are in a country where less than 10% of our workforce works in formal sector jobs, right? And our education system continues to operate like with complete disregard to this fact. Right? That, hey, as in, what is it that we want our young people to be doing? And while following instructions is important for the cordiality of a classroom, it's important that young people are able to exercise creativity, are able to exercise choice, and learn to make decisions and face consequences of those decisions. I feel a lot of our young people end up doing that much, much later, and reality hits them through the three shocks of after 10th standard, after 12th standard, and then finally after, as in when it's time for their marriage. And that's when they are hit by reality. And like, you meet a 18-year-old, you meet a 21-year-old and 25-year-old, you see very different experiences. So enabling young people to experience choice, experience entrepreneurial experiences would be something that could possibly allow them to be a lot more confident. And as we know, 75% of our kids leave education by 12th. So before that time, if they have done something that they are proud of, created something of value, they would know how to do the same when they hit real life. We feel like the Delhi example has been very promising and has a lot that can be improved, but has a lot that can be learned by others. So I'll pause here, given we started late, and I do want to hear Raj too.
Great, thanks, Mekin. Raj, would love to hear you talk about internships. And there's a question around, how does one actually look at apprenticeships when corporates are not taking it on or employers are not offering so much? So, if you could sort of tie the two together, given the paucity of time, it could also answer that question as we go along. So, internships, how's it been? What is the experience? And internships feature so prominently in NEP. What does that mean in terms of execution on the ground?
Yes. So actually, thank you. Thanks, Manisha. So picking on Mekin's, building on that almost 80% of our employees, are in the unorganized, so-called unorganized small and micro enterprises sector. And we have viewed them to be the best way to sort of, as a skill development center, actually. So the whole internship idea which we are implementing in Delhi, and the genesis of it is my own personal life, that I'm a son of a Kirana store, merchant, like a very typical Gujarati. Was intern to my dad since I was 9 years old and I was in third grade. So I think what I learned there, right from sweeping the floor to manage the cash to, go to the market to buy the stuff to help my dad, is what you're replicating in Delhi now. And the advantage of this is, one is that when you work with a small and micro enterprise, obviously you are looking more on the entrepreneurial side of that business as compared to organized sector, where you look for a full-time job, right? In that sense. Secondly, they're everywhere. So access is not an issue. These are below 18 year of kids we are talking about. So giving them something which is with the vicinity of the school or a home is very sort of important as well. Thirdly, how do we bring gender barrier, right? Otherwise, normally one of the issue with the skill education has been, which we haven't alluded to yet, that the girls will do beauty parlor and the boys will do, automobile. That is like a given thing. How can we break that sort of a barrier? In which these internships, we have been able to have examples where the girls have gone to become, electrical wiring mechanic, or being CNC machine operator, or elevator maintenance, and all those things are happening because of this internship, which has been part of the curriculum, now. On the other side, of course, we need to look at the child safety, all the other things which are, when you're working below 18. Kids, we have to look at that the child safety and other things are taken care of. But overall, response has been great, and it can, I would say, that can act as a feeder for apprenticeship, because apprenticeship is a full-time job, whereas internship can give you sort of a test of what is to come in going forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Raj. I know we're running short of time, but I'd like to do a quick round robin with all the panelists on one question before we open up. Mr. Upadhyay, if I could come back to you, and this is we heard about Mr. Yadav talk about that the targets in the NEP, that 50% of the schools should have exposure to, 50% of the students in the schools should have exposure to some form of vocational training before the end of 2025, which I think across the board, everyone is saying it is very ambitious. And how do you make it reality? As Jayant said, this is a huge, huge leap that we need to take. So just literally, think of this as a rapid fire in some ways. If there was one thing that you think from your vantage point needs to be done, either a policy measure or an innovation, to make this 50% a reality, what would that one thing top of your mind or top of your list be?
I would talk about two things. You see, there is a lot of fund in the government system in different departments, and only education departments work. Education ministry cannot do it, but government has a lot of funds flowing in through different departments at the grassroots level. So if somehow we can, ensure that some of the funds are routed for this purpose. Second is, of course, the industry, the state-specific industry. If they can be motivated to, set up some labs through CSR in the schools, because they are very keen to work in the schools. That has been my experience. So this is the only way forward. Otherwise, it's a humongous task, but nonetheless, we can start like this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Upadhyay. Sunita, I know you listed a whole lot of really brilliant ideas, and they're getting a lot of feedback on that on the chat, but I'm going to give you this really difficult task of maybe picking the top two that you think will be radical sort of changers of the way things are. Since Mr. Upadhyay got two, I feel obliged to allow you to as well.
I think, Manisha, one of the things that I would like, I think we need to consider is that we take the formal school students through 4 years of skill training from 9th to 12th. And with each year focusing on one level of skilling on a particular job role, I think this way, by the time a student passes out from grade 12th, he or she will be a certified skilled person in a selected job role. Second, of course, was I have already mentioned about hub and spoke model. And as I said, I have written the chat box also that I know fully well that the labs at the ITIs are not very good because ITIs are not under our control. They are under the control of the state governments. But then from the Ministry of Skill Development, we are already running a pilot with Odisha and MP government. And we are proposing under our World Bank led program to upgrade the labs in many of the ITIs so that we are able to actually make ITIs a real hub. And then I think it will also be useful to create some role models in education, BET integrated programs, which have high demand and which can command a skill wage premium to really trigger a large scale adoption in the ecosystem. And I feel that institutions like the IITs, for instance, they can take a lead in creating select vocational embedded programs in, say, the automobile sector, which will have better employability than the general engineering graduate. These are some of the suggestions which I personally feel if we are really wanting to realize the vision of the new education policy, we need to actually take.
Thank you, Sunita. Raj, you get only one since you're really hosting this session. So what is that one thing that you want changed? And it has to be over and above the ideas that Mr. Upadhyay and Sunita have shared with us.
Yes, definitely. I think my one dream idea would be that having customized NSQF compliance norms for vocational education in the schools. Currently the NSQF compliance norms which are there are basically, are there mostly from the outside the training centers which are there for the short-term skilling courses for above 18 sort of youth. How do we, customize or make those NSQF compliant norms flexible for the school education, given their age, 14 to 18, as well as the long-term nature of the skilling that they go through? So that's my one only wish. Thank you.
Manisha, I just want to answer to what Raj has just indicated. We are already looking into as a regulator in this particular aspect, that because we also realize that we need to have a different kind of an approach when it comes to the school if we really want NSQF to be adopted by the school. So we are looking at it.
Raj, your dream has come true already. All right, great. Mekin, your one dream ask, and maybe Sunita will have already be working on that. So go for it.
Sorry, this is going to be like... So my dream is that schools become places of doing, places of creation, open not just to students, but also to the community around them. That there is real doing and real creation that happens in school and is showcased. Like there is ownership that gets built as a result of people having participated in the creation of things that have led to the school looking better, school functioning better. And I think unless doing gets integrated into people's lives and how things operate, if it's treated only as a course, as something that is done outside, I wonder. So that's my dream, Manisha.
Great, thank you, everyone. Raj asked me to speak about from the donor perspective, but frankly, this discussion has been so rich that all my views and wish list has all been covered, and plus some more from the speakers. So we're going to go to the questions. I think most of the questions have actually been either answered in the chat or already responded to by the speakers. But if there are still any that you have, please put them in the chat and in the YouTube comments. Raj, could you tell me if there are questions in the YouTube comments?
Manisha, so there is a question called "The rubber hits the road in the states. What kind of support states like Sikkim and Rajasthan, Maharashtra, all those will require to execute such policy?"
Mr. Upadhyay, do you want to tell us what kind of support are you looking for?
I would like to hear from Raj again, once again. Raj, एक बार फिर से बताइए क्या बोला आपने?
The question is, the rubber hits the road in the states, to execute the national policy. What kind of support states like Sikkim and Northeast area and other states will look for to actually execute it, right? Because this is where you have to execute. The policies are there. So what kind of support will you be looking for from the central government?
I think there was a very good question asked to Santosh Yadav, which I feel that it's a very important point. That is about training of vocational teachers, because they are not part of the government school system. They are through a service provider at the current juncture. So their training and the motivation level generally is low among them, because they don't have a career. They don't see a career for themselves as teachers. So like in a government school, people ask me that how to motivate the teachers. I tell them that if the teacher is confident of the system being fair to him, and he has because every government servant aspires to have a career, so they will do a good job, like their recruitment, their promotion policy. So vocational teachers training, continuous training, because we all need to train ourselves periodically to upgrade our all kinds of skills that we have or we may like to have. So that is a very important support that the state requires. And as I said, like organic farming, I tell you one example. We roped in our Department of Horticulture and Agriculture, and they supported us with lots of know-how and even funds and demo sessions and all that, with how to prepare an organic insecticide or pesticide, or how to prepare compost, or how to prepare this and that vermi. So I mean, government has huge amount of fund being channelized through different departments. Now school education is something which feeds all the departments by way of trained manpower. Let us look at it this way. Now, why should only we think that school is the responsibility of education department? अरे सब लोग आपके पास जो schemes हैं, अगर कोई vocational जैसे organic farming हमारे यहाँ था, किसी के यहाँ, for example, in Pune, for example, there are so many automobile companies. They can do so much of work in setting up small labs. And as Raj said, the NSQF norms and school के लिए norms बहुत stringent करने की जरूरत नहीं है. You see, my whole point is that the child has to enjoy while learning by doing and doing by hands. उसको हम इतने जंजीरों में बांध देते हैं कि ये करना है, वो करना है, ऐसे एग्जाम होगा, वैसे वो बेचारा उसी में उलझ जाता है. उसको थोड़ा एंजॉय करने दो, सीखने दो यार. वो see, when you learn something by doing and you take so much of pride. मुझे याद है जब हमारे घर में कूलर होता था, बहुत पहले की बात है, अब तो कूलर खत्म ही हो गए काफी. तो उसमें टुल्लू पंप खराब होने पे जब मिस्त्री आता था ठीक करना, I used to sit with him, जरा मुझे बताते रहिए कैसे आप खोलते हैं, कैसे पेंच कसते हैं, कैसे तार को घुमाते हैं. मुझे इतना मजा आता था, मुझे रात में मतलब नींद नहीं आती थी खुशी से कि मैंने आज क्या सीख लिया. And that was a great enabler for me to learn from my textbook पढ़ा के, and with so much of regulations and all. I mean, the point is that there is so much of money in the system. Last में सब लोग कंप्यूटर खरीदते हैं, गाड़ियां खरीदते हैं, पैसा खर्च नहीं होता मार्च में. तो money is in the system. Government departments have money. Now the thing is that they need to think that this particular activity, if it is started in the schools, what they can do for the schools. It's plain and simple as far as I am concerned. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Upadhyay. We do have some questions. Aarti, I know you asked a question about what the government is doing to make vocational skilling in institutions more effective. Sunita spoke quite extensively about that when she was sharing with us how the different ministries are working together. Since we are running late, I'd like to wrap up this session with all due respect to the next panelists. Thank you so much. I think very key things emerged from this rich sharing of ideas. Resource allocation is a critical piece. Removing the stigma in schools, we heard that across the board when it comes to vocational education as a piece. And I think for me, the biggest takeaway is that one of the ideas that was given that, can we tie it up and make it aspirational? And Sunita spoke about this. Is how do we make it aspirational in terms of running programs with the likes of IITs, which are anyway seen as aspirational places to go. So just to conclude, I think all of us are very, very, very clear that NEP 2020 is going to be transformational. We know there are hurdles. There are examples of success across the two states that we spoke about today, both Sikkim as well as Delhi. There is government commitment to it. But there are things that we need to learn from each other. Mr. Yadav spoke about it. There are experiments and pilots that the private sector can do, which can be then adopted by the government to scale up. And at the end of the day, what we really want is that every young person, I will not call them a child, I will call them a young person. Every young person has the ability and the choice to choose her or his own career path, and our education system offers them that. Thank you so much. I hand over back to Raj for the next panel.
Great. Thank you. I think thanks, Mr. Upadhyay, Mrs. Sanghi, Mekin, for joining us today. And I think as an NGO founder, probably I have achieved nirvana today. I put my funder to work, by putting Manisha as a moderator here. So thank you, Manisha, for being a sport to, join here. And as if Manisha from JP Morgan was not enough, we are going to put another funder to work now. Can I welcome Suman, Ms. Suman Sachdeva, the education head for UNICEF, to take through the other panel, which is focused on career guidance and talking about the initiative with Rajasthan and Maharashtra. Suman, over to you.
Thank you, Raj. Thank you very much. I don't know how to begin this panel because the previous one has ignited such deep and very serious discussion around two very important topics, vocational education and entrepreneurship. So we would want to keep it practical, simple, and have a discussion based on some of the very key programs that have been implemented on the ground. So thank you, Raj. I would begin straight by introducing two eminent panelists here. Dr. Panwar Lal, Rajasthan, belongs to one of my favorite states. Not that the others are not, but definitely here because we really had some significant breakthroughs in terms of career guidance. He's an IS cadre of 2014 and currently the State Project Director, Samagra Shiksha. He's also Additional Commissioner, Rajasthan Council of School Education. Very dynamic and inclusive program for career guidance with actually equal partnership from the state is being witnessed in Rajasthan under his leadership. Second in line is Mr. Vikas Garad from Maharashtra, who is equally passionate, committed, very prompt, and a person, I must say, of details, as I see him getting involved more and more with this whole career guidance program that we are implementing in Maharashtra. He's a Deputy Director, SCERT. We have with us Priya Agarwal, Anantarang Foundation, again a founder of a foundation, a non-profit which is based in Mumbai, and doing some fantastic, extensive work in school-to-work transition for young students at risk in various districts of Maharashtra, Rajasthan, and UP. And then we have, last but not the least, somebody who is also featured in Business World under 40 2020 list, Ayush. He is a young founder of iDream Career. All the NOG Nexus of Good knows him. This is a social enterprise and career guidance space that uses technology as an enabler and currently impacts more than 20 million plus students across 15 states of India. So mammoth task here. So thank you all four of you for joining me here. I would, for the audience, just reiterate the objectives of the panel. So what we need to look out here is that we would be talking about an equally serious topic, but in school education, career guidance and counseling. And we would try to understand why this is so important for our students, especially in given context of the pandemic. The second objective of this would also be to understand that we have brought in representatives of the government here to support career education in school education. And again, a question that sometimes we wonder, why school education we are talking about career guidance at all? So that's objective number 2. And last but not the least, when we start any intervention, we also need to make sure that these are sustained. So how do we understand the sustainability element of implementation of any of the career guidance programs? And what are the critical partnerships that we can have? So these are some of the 3 things anchored around for this panel discussion. Moving straight to the question, I would ask Mr. Banwal, again, going back to the state where we have been working very extensively for past 3 years, Mr. Panwal, my question to you would be to tell us how you think, how important is career guidance and counseling in today's times, coming straight on to the pandemic, COVID-19 context. Why do you think that career guidance and counseling is so important that the states really jumped into this business? Over to you, Mr. Panwal.
Thank you, Sumanji, for the kind words. First of all, I would like to welcome all the panelists who are my fellow colleagues and other eminent speakers from the various fields. We are thankful to the UNICEF and other organizers for this webinar, and Sumanji for using kind words for the Rajasthan. Your team has always been a pillar of support to us. Regarding the question you raised, how career counseling is important with respect to the current situation of COVID-19. First of all, I would like to say that career counseling has always been a very important thing, because this is one thing on which, like everyone, right from the beginning, when we have little bit of understanding about our own life, we all think about a respectable career and what one wants to become in his future. And this is very important question that COVID has impacted all of us, especially the students, because the schools were closed. We were forced due to lockdown, and it was a very challenging time for both students as well as parents and also the school administrators, how to carry on with at least with the basic school like learning outcomes, so that learning outcomes do not suffer during such times. With COVID-19, of course, various career opportunities has taken a hit. Like some of them have been impacted positively and some of them have been impacted negatively also, because some of the careers has taken a jump after COVID. And we all know how technology has played an important part during COVID-19, because that was one thing which has kept us all connected, especially the digital platforms. So this is one example like how digital platforms or IT sector has taken a big leap during COVID-19. So similarly, there are many jobs which might have lost importance during COVID. So it is very important for students to learn this thing. What are the career opportunities which they should look for in the future, especially keeping in mind the present times like COVID-19. We understand the value of career and guidance for young students, and hence we partnered with UNICEF and iDream Career to launch Rajiv Gandhi Career Portal with updated information on various careers, and also how one can enroll in these streams or various colleges admission processes. Information is also given, and about more than 550 plus career options is listed on that portal. This portal has played a very important role in helping students transit from school to work and help them in taking better career and college decision. And especially, as I had mentioned earlier also, during COVID times when it was very tough for all of us to physically be in touch with our students, career guidance portal, which was launched on Feb 19 Feb 6th Feb 2019. It has played a very important role during this time. We have been able to connect to our students by inviting speakers from the eminent fields, and it has been a really satisfying experience to impart some information regarding various careers to our students. So with COVID-19, of course, we have, as I had earlier mentioned, that some careers has taken a hit and some has really gone on a high, or which has become the most sought after careers. It is very important for students to know about that thing.
Ma'am, you are on mute, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Banwal. And I do understand that we are particularly sympathetic with class 2020 and also people who are working during this time, because pandemic has really hit their learning, their future trajectories seem to be absolutely dark and bleak. And at this point of time, bringing in technology-enabled understanding for the students may have been really needy thing to do at that point of time. I would want to understand a little more about, could you identify what has been very critical in terms of success of the program? Because we hear that the state and as well as us, we have been talking about the state portal being one of the best practice of implementation. So what is that one thing or maybe couple which have been critical for the success of the program, which you would be telling everybody to look for while you are implementing technology-enabled career guidance programs moving forward?
So before I go on to list the initiatives which has helped us in achieving a commendable success of this portal, I will give a little information about this portal. Rajiv Gandhi Career Guidance Portal was launched on 6th Feb 2019 by state government with collaboration with UNICEF and iDream Career. This is we conduct one-day orientation programs for the students of grade 9 to 12. We have been till now, I would like to mention that more than 16,735 schools have been covered under this program, and close to 40 lakh students have logins have been generated. And satisfying thing is that this 40 lakh logins, out of this 40 lakh logins, boys and girls have equal number, like close to 20 lakh boys and close to 20 lakh girls have made a login, which is a very satisfying thing if we look into it. Regarding the success behind this career portal, I must say there were a lot of interventions which were implemented. First thing was involvement of the teachers, because teachers play a very important role in shaping the career of the students, and teachers are the point of contact, first point of contact for the students whenever they are curious about any of the career guidance opportunities. So we started with training teachers regarding this career guidance portal, and we could train close to like more than 15,000 teachers were trained on this career guidance portal. They were given logins so that they can pass the updated career information to the students who are in touch with them. Then we constituted career guidance centers in all districts and block levels to create information at the mass level, because we wanted to disseminate the information about the portal to a larger section of the students. That is why we wanted to go to the grassroots level, and we also created centers in the block level as well. Thirdly, for the sustainability of any program or any scheme, it is very important that effective monitoring of this program is done. Similarly, we also made an agenda that this is a regular feature of our monitoring with our district level officials, and we used to conduct monthly review with DOs, and further we made a point to go to the level of the school principals to closely monitor the login of the students on the portal. Now our focus will shift to the micro things, like how much time is being spent by each student after login, number of logins made. All those things will also be monitored. Then we also made a point that we started online YouTube sessions along with this career guidance portal, because these sessions were conducted by career professionals from different industries, and they were all live like guidance webinars, and approximately we have been able to conduct 20 to 25 such seminars, and all those 20 to 25 videos have been watched by more than 25 lakhs students, making a huge impact on the way they learn about career. So in short, these were the 3-4 things which made our portal a success, and especially effective monitoring and involving teachers was very important.
Thank you so much. So it's very clear that school education considers guidance around career and counseling is extremely important. And so did Maharashtra. Coming on to you, Mr. Virat. Why did Maharashtra pick this path of integrating career guidance in school education to support students so that they have a very secure future trajectory, education and career? I mean, I understand that this was important. So one is why you did it in Maharashtra, and two, how did you do this?
Thank you, Sumanji, and good evening all. As you correctly said that career is a very important thing in each and everyone's life, and all students, parents and teachers are well aware of selecting a good career. And I like to inform you, and I also like to share you that Maharashtra always have the career counseling part in our standard 10th grade. Our student, we have provided facility of career counselors facility for the student of standard 10th grade. We have one department called as Vocational Guidance and Psychological Guidance at SCRT. And we also have our trained counselors and psychological counselors at district level and school levels, which are appointed at the schools and trained by SCRT. So these are going to support the students, but it is not sufficient for that. So we have contacted with the UNICEF and the Asman Foundation and adopted the career guidance portal from the UNICEF and translated it into the Marathi. because as you know that we have the India and Bharat, that is that means we have the developed part and developing part in each and every state. So might be there are many cases that students and parents are not that much aware of varied career path and courses, vocational courses. So giving information to each and everyone, authentic information, and at their fingertips is a very important. So we have launched the MahaCareer portal with the hands of our Honorable Minister in the lockdown itself. So it is helping our students and teachers to select good careers and vocational careers through the portal. Thank you.
Okay, so Mr. Karat, I would also try and understand. We've heard about lots of strengths of your program. Are there any limitations as well? Because each program, nothing is perfect here. So some of the limitations might even help us understand how to move forward when we are rolling out or scaling up our interventions elsewhere or within the state. So any limitations in particular?
Yeah, that's the actually we always looks upon the strength of any program, and we always also looks about the limitation of any program, so that we can look it into that and we can make better of with that. So considering the limitations that we are only catering to the government and government aided schools till now, and we are always, though it is open for all students from government and government aided schools, but the internet connectivity and the reach of the student is that much of barrier in the same, because as you see, we have almost 10% uses in Maharashtra. That means 90% students who are already have the facility to go through the portal and select or know about the career path are not yet using it because of lack of awareness or something like that. But also the scarcity of internet and scarcity of devices at the ground level is also a bit of limitation when we think about the limitations right now.
Okay, thank you. I also would like to understand, we have been talking a lot, both Rajasthan and Maharashtra, about programs which have used technology. You've looked at portals, you've looked at other kind of support system. Are these a means to empowering marginalized young people to have their career pathways, or is it an end? How do you look at that? I mean, is that enough? What else needs to be done in that space if you were to look from school education perspective?
It's actually a good question, because we always there is always a question about the mindset that the glass is half filled or not, like that. So we are so regarding the marginalized section, we are thinking to open it for the out of school children also, and allotting ID for the out of school children is also a bit of problem. So how to identify them and how to give them access to that portal is also a challenge in front of us, so that the marginalized section can also have the benefit to use this portal. But as I said earlier, that proper orientation and proper backbone system, that means our district coordinators, our counselors are doing a great job in the field to access and to give the orientation to the students also, and to make the awareness in the field also. So in fact, the mouth publicity that you have this kind of system available with you, this can also help to give the better orientation and to the each and every section of the society. That's what I think.
Thank you very much, Mr. Garaj. But also, I think, I don't know if Sunita Sanghi is here with us from the previous panel, but we had been talking a whole lot about linking the career guidance space with, of course, entrepreneurship, vocational education, but also with job opportunities, making sure that the students are aware. Once they move out from school, they transition beautifully into that space, and what all is needed in terms of apprenticeship, internship, the whole lot of people who were before us would also be contributing to link this space. So that's where this journey then becomes a bit more concrete for the children. I'm going on to Priya. Priya, we would like to really understand, I believe you have been a very coveted partner in Maharashtra in the space of career guidance. do elaborate your model, and I'm excited to hear about that, with all the night schools in Mumbai and day schools in suburban Mumbai in Maharashtra. We would like to understand a little more on that. That should be an exciting journey for you, I guess. Over to you, Priya.
Thank you, Sumanji. And yeah, so like how, Vikas just mentioned, Maharashtra has always had career guidance and career counseling, right? So in 2016, when we came into the picture, when we were approached by the government at that time, right, we realized that why, like Vikasji already said, right, while there was career guidance and counseling, the portal was already up there, right? Nobody really knew about it. Okay, so the reason why we introduced career guidance and counseling in a much more intensive fashion in the 9th and 10th standard was, one, to make sure that students actually complete class 9 and complete class 10, and they don't drop out of education before that. They're actually using the resources that are available to them and making informed decisions on what to do after class 10, right? And not just mindlessly sort of after 10th standard in a city like Bombay, because it is a financial capital. Everybody goes on to do commerce, the ones who do decide to stay on in education, right? And in each state, you're just going by what your friends are doing or what your parents or your own ecosystem is telling you to do. So how do you get children to make informed transition? The third, how do you actually build aspiration also in children? Right, so I'm first talking about the why it was done. From 2016, we've been running career guidance and counseling across all schools in Bombay and Pune, night as well as regular day schools, but with government and government aided schools, as Vikasji already sort of mentioned, right? We also wanted to make sure that we're building aspiration in students. We spoke about, how students need to have that we need to make all of the options aspirational, otherwise they're not going to take it up at all. That, and then how, like, what really is the model? When you ask, the model is an intensive 2-year model that we run with the state, right? In the 9th as well as in the 10th standard, and it delivers 3 things for every student in the 9th and 10th standard. One is awareness of all the options, whether it is through the portal or, at that time, there was also this career counseling report that students used to get, right? But that report used to come at the end of 10th standard after their results also came out, right? So one is to build awareness of all of the options. Second is the ability for them to make an informed choice, right? What is a template that they should use? What kind of a career plan they need to come up with? That is the second piece, the ability to make a choice. The third thing that the model delivers is actually access to all of these options, right? Which means that you actually handhold them with the online admissions after class 10. Or if a student wants to get into vocational education after class 8 or class 9, again, provide that hand-holding support as well. This is what Antarang has been doing over the last 3 years. Now, how does it get delivered? Like I said, it's a 2-year program. In the 9th standard, Maharashtra helped us, actually embed a career week within the school curriculum and within the school timetable. So we actually have 5 days of only career counseling for 3 hours within the school timetable that is there. We have about 250, we trained about 250 career facilitators who, along with the school teachers, actually, delivered self-awareness, the psychometric test students did. And because, Vikas sir already spoke about technology not being completely accessible, right? We used a combination of technology as well as workbooks, right? So with pen and paper at that time, and then OMR sheets would collect that information, and technology would help us customize the counseling reports. So, and then there would be one-on-one counseling with the parents and the teachers, which is really critical, because if you don't involve parents, all of this awareness and aspiration ultimately will not turn into actual transition. So we had parent counseling as well. And then in the 10th standard, again, you go back with follow-up sessions, keep telling them about the exciting new courses, exciting new career streams that are opening up. And when results came out, since Manisha is also here, with the help of corporate volunteers like JP Morgan volunteers and a whole bunch of volunteers and the teachers in the school system, we would actually help students fill in the online application so that we're making sure that they're actually transitioning. So that's really the model, I think, which is a 2-year kind of a framework that we use.
Interesting. interesting, Priya. I would also want to ask you if you think, what could you have done better? Sometimes you look back, reflect, we always try and see and think that what has worked well, what has been the strength, and well, yes, we could do this, but what could you have done better?
So lots of things, Sumanji, honestly, that, nobody is perfect, neither is, the model that we are running, nothing is really perfect. So definitely if I look at, and I'm going to look at this question a little bit differently, right? What we would have done, what we could have done better if I sort of think back right now. We all spoke about the need to mainstream, right? Currently, we are running this model intensively only in Bombay and Pune largely, and everywhere else it is, it is a much more lighter touch model. But I feel like from the beginning, if all of us together actually intensively made career guidance and counseling part of the mainstream, where it's just part of, everybody's narrative, right? Then I feel just, like how if you're sick, you go to a doctor. If you want any kind of advice on what you need to do next, you go to a career counselor. That kind of mainstream sort of narrative would have got embedded early on, right? So I would say that that's probably one big thing that we would change in the way the model was really rolled out in all its intensity.
Thank you for your honesty on that. I am going to move on to Ayush. Ayush, your work has been talked about, but everybody, Maharashtra, spoken, Rajasthan, we all know that you have been a critical partner in one of the finest partnerships amongst government, UN, and private partnership. It's a great piece to see, which has been institutionalized in at least 13 states at this point of time. Really huge, gigantic task. We also know that all the states where we have implemented a technology-enabled portal are at different levels of implementation. And we also know that we have gone through immense amount of challenges. Mr. Sarup would agree with me. It's not very easy to work both with government, UN, and also with private partners in some sense, but to institutionalize everything within the government system is a huge challenge. I would want to ask you, what do you think are critical elements that are required in creating, nurturing, and sustaining such a partnership? What do you think? Especially from your lens of the portals being taken to different states. Over to you, Ayush.
Sure. First of all, it was a large work. It's a massive work now that's going on with 13 state government. I believe that when it comes to career guidance, such a large outreach for 20 million plus students now, I think it's one of the largest in the world, keeping in mind the students coming from the disadvantaged families. In terms of the model, what we understood was that the government requires some trust and comfort when it comes to implementing any new and innovative program. There has to be some comfort and some space and some trust being built with the government, right? The UNICEF came in as a supporting partner, and it realized that this is a need for the students at a young age in class 9 to 12, and came and said that, okay, we would want to support this for 5 years. When we went to the government, government found it quite comforting that there is a support from UNICEF, right, who would come in the picture to support and provide strategic inputs on how to scale it up, right, and that the government can pilot it and see if it's working or not. So this period of 4 to 5 odd years really provided the support. So UN came with the support in the strategic partnership. Government came as the platform for taking this to students with all their existing resources, like teachers, like schools platform that were there, and how can that be used to implement this. And us at the iDream Career came in as a knowledge partner, because we had the know-how of the career guidance. We came with this entire experience that we have put in the effort in the last 9+ years now, that we have built in a lot of content. How can we further contextualize it and implement it to the student? So it is a very win-win three-way partnership, wherein UN came as a strategic support partner. Government came in as someone who bought in this idea and wanted to do this pilot and see whether this can be reached out to the scale and whether it has some impact or not. And we coming it as a know-how for this. So I think this was a three-way partnership that we were able to forge in. And now we are trying to move forward. It's already been 2.5 years. State government has started seeing some impact from the program. And I must say, what Priya also said, that how can we really mainstream career counseling inside the school ecosystem? If there is a science teacher, if there is a maths teacher, there should be a career counselor as well. And that is how the push has been, and the advocacy has been, to really mainstream career guidance in the school going forward, that after this 4 to 5 years, the government realized the importance of it and build into the mainstream this into the school ecosystem.
Correct. So I guess we have been recommending a lot of things moving forward to government, because it's the largest provider of education in terms of what should be done in career guidance and counseling. But we're also showing some examples on the ground saying this is how it works. One takeaway for me is that everybody has to stretch a bit. The government has to stretch, the partner has to stretch. You have to come out of your comfort zone and take risks and be responsible for taking those risks as well. So I was more keen, now that we think we are established in 13 states, the government has somewhat trust, how this intervention can be sustained, or that has an implication for any intervention that is taken forward, because it's really not enough that you put in so much of resources in terms of human resource, time, and your whole commitment to it. It's very important that some good success pieces must be sustained. So given the dynamic nature of the portal, involvement of technology that is changing by the hour, if not by minute, how can private partners, government work together for its sustainability? Your thoughts, Ayush?
Yeah, so we are looking at a couple of ways of sustainability, moving forward beyond these 5 years, especially two of them. The first one being that one thing that we really looked upon it was how the economics of career guidance be as low as possible, and how can it be the most economical when it comes to providing career guidance to government school students through enabling technology as an online platform and mobile app. So the initial investment in contextualizing, the translation of the content, all that took place already with support from UNICEF, which was a large investment, right? Beyond these 5 years, the state government already would see the impact of it, and there's a very minimum annual maintenance cost that they can take it out from any of the state budgets if they want to scale it and sustain it for the next 5 odd years. Then, so that's the first way wherein the state government see the impact in these 5 years, the heavy lifting of the investments in terms of setting the portal, contextualizing it, translation of more than 15 lakh words. All of that has taken place with the support of UNICEF. And going forward, the 4 to 5 years, the government can take it up as an in-house sustainability thing through annual maintenance budget, etc. The second way, and which is a very interesting way, and that is something that has been on my mind all this couple of years, and that we are trying to really break in, is that there is a heavy budget that goes from the Indian government, almost 30% of all the Skill India budgets, any Skill India courses that run, which goes on mobilizing the student, right? The government pay under PMKVY almost 20 to 30% of budget just for mobilizing students for different skill courses. But however, there is a very high dropout rate that we see in these skilling institutes, and any vocational, majority of the vocational training programs is very high dropout rate in these skill courses, just because there is a randomized enrollment of students in these various skill courses. But that can change actually if career guidance can be incorporated in the process of mobilization of learners, youth, and students in this skilling ecosystem. And that's where the opportunity lies to leverage this mobilization budget on career guidance and making it self-sustainable. So we are just now initiating a pilot. We signed an MOU with NSDC, and we are looking at doing a pilot wherein how can really career guidance build in a pipeline of students for vocational training programs in all the block at the district level across the country. So I think that's the second way to really make a self-sustaining model wherein even government do not pay for the annual maintenance cost, but this is something we are testing it out right now.
Very interesting, Ayush. I think let's see how it rolls out, but it definitely says that no one can do it alone. partnerships are extremely critical here. So let's see how that rolls out. Looking at the time, we don't have too much left. So I am also going to wrap up this whole panel before we open it out to question by asking all the panelists. We used to have jam, just a minute session. I'm going to have a just a sentence jazz session here, where I'm asking each panelist to give it one sentence. What do you think is a result or an impact of a career guidance programs on the lives of young people? So one sentence from each one of you. We are all working very hard in this space. We are thinking hard, we are working hard. We are putting in lots of resources in terms of time. What do you think in one sentence would be the impact on young people? We start by Mr. Bhanwal.
I think career guidance is one thing which we all, as I had mentioned earlier also, which we all aspired right from our school days. So I think this is very important for which each student aspires, and to have a positive impact on one's quality of life, standard of life, career guidance is very, very critical.
You think it will improve the quality of life of young people? Okay, go to Mr. Vikas Karar, please.
Yeah, you can follow your, I can say that you can follow your passion, you can follow your hero, and you can be like a hero, or you can be a hero for the society if you have the right interest, and you can follow the right interest and right path using the right information.
Great, I'm enjoying what I'm hearing now. So Priya.
Like the others said, enter a career of your choice. Make sure that you're earning well, you're progressing economically and socially.
Excellent. And Ayush?
For me, career guidance, I mean, in terms of the impact, just one sentence, it would be opening multiple doors of opportunity for students towards different careers that they had no prior access to, and especially girls.
Definitely. I was thinking we are not talking really explicitly about girls, and here it comes. And yeah, we're all looking for productive lives for ourselves, our families, more for us and also for our society. And this might be one breakthrough that we have as a solution. I'll open up with questions before I conclude here. So do we have any questions, Raj?
I think they were to be sent to you, Suman, directly, but here I don't see any.
Yeah, Ayush, I haven't yet.
I think most of the questions, we have already answered on the YouTube comments as well. And there are general comments over here in the Zoom. So yeah, I mean, most of them have been answered, yeah.
Okay, great. So I can then take liberty of concluding the panel in time, right on the dot. I would begin by saying that we all agree that career guidance is very important for each one of us. Even at this moment, it's very important. And it's very important to begin as early as possible. And that's why the relevance is to start early enough and then move on more strategically within the education system. That's kind of a gist that I'm hearing from everybody. The second thing I heard is that it's everybody's business. Not only the teacher who is a fulcrum in education, but the system who supports teacher. Parents, we've heard about how important it is for parents to not only guide, support, but be open-minded in terms of the careers children can pursue, both girls and boys. So the stereotypical thinking, ideas, biases needs to be broken at this point of time, right from early onwards, family and within the school. The third thing I hear is that even in high-performing systems, I remember a research by McKinsey years ago, which talked about which systems are doing well, which are moderate and which are low. And some of the high-performing education systems like Hong Kong, Netherlands, and others thought that career guidance was very, very important, and they began very early. And we had been looking at these models when we have been starting this discourse and looking at creating a framework, in which we just did with the Ministry of Skills and FICCI, understanding that how school education should give various options, should start talking about building those aspirations much earlier and then weave it and integrate it while in the education system itself. And that's what led to also what Priya had been saying about KSA approach. Knowledge building skills and building aspirations. It's very important to give knowledge, as the portal has been giving all relevant information to students, but also building aspirations in both girls and boys to be what they should be doing, and opening out the entire the plethora of opportunities that are there sitting over there. But most importantly is also how to go and get. It's not only about decision, but the ways to get it. What is the right way to get it, and then take decisions, learn, and that comes to my pet subject about life skills. You need to have those life skills to be able to take decisions, to communicate effectively, problem solve, resolve conflicts in this whole business of taking decisions about your careers here. We also heard that technology is important. We've been seeing that portal has played a very, very important role. But again, it's not something that is accessible to everybody. So it's high time we start thinking of a blended approach. I mean, of course, it's not enough to even have only face-to-face approach. It's expensive. It may not be all that impactful. We use technology as a tool, and we look at blended approaches in terms of supporting our children right at the grassroots all the time. An important part also came up in terms of partnerships. As I said, partnerships are extremely critical, but in each partnership, the most important element is trust. Let's all agree to that all partnerships amongst government partners, private partners, any other agencies, it is sitting on the element of trust and the commitment and passion for our children. So I think that's the ending for me here. And this is such a great platform which talks only about partnerships. The Nexus of Good ends at that note, that career guidance, counseling, everything needs to be resting on partnerships which are based on trust. So I conclude here. Thank you very much, everybody, for giving us this time and listening to us this evening. Over to you, Raj.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Suman. And first of all, thanks to Mr. Manoj Lal, the State Project Director for Samagra Shiksha, because this is, as you may know, this is the annual planning season. So this month of February and March are probably the most busiest months for them. So thanks for sparing your time with us, and Mr. Vikas Garud as well. I'm not going to thank formally my friends Priya and Ayush, because they are my fellow colleagues in the journey of social transformation. So thanks again. And Mr. Anil Swarup would like to give you the closing remarks. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Raj. What a wonderful interaction we had. I could rate this as one of the finest that we've had. The quality of discussions were wonderful. I've taken a lot of notes, but I don't want to go on to those notes for the simple reason that we run out of time. I just mentioned two names here. I think the two persons who coordinated two sessions did it so wonderfully. My apologies to Manisha Chatta. I thought it was a Manish Chatta, but there has to be a woman better than the man. So Manisha did excellently the way she concluded. And Suman Sachdev, I have known her for quite some time, and she's always been very wonderful. But today your concluding remarks actually summed everything. I had taken notes. I thought I'll speak, but that will be a repetition. So you did it so wonderfully. It was a wonderful, wonderful evening. I enjoyed it thoroughly. There's so much that we can now get down to doing, because I've always believed walking is much better than talking. But through talking, we get to know what good work is happening. And what is happening in Sikkim, Rajasthan, and Delhi is really wonderful. And I hope some of the other states that would have participated would have learned from it. Nexus of Good really means coming together, good coming together, coordination, sitting down and finding solutions, looking at things positively. And I think that stood serve today. So thank you very much, all of you, for being here. It was a wonderful session, as I said, and a very good night to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.